Oh, I bet you just got caught off camera too. Hello, my name is Briar. Welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to share my 3 strategies for using PrepTober to win NaNoWriMo. Now, I've won NaNoWriMo 4 times in the past. Once we're not counting because that was a fluke. I honestly had no idea what I was doing and I just sort of cheated. But the other 3 times I did either write an entire story or start a new story on November 1st and get 50,000 words, or continuing a story that I'd already started and get 50,000 words in November. And all 3 times I had different ways of approaching NaNoWriMo through the month of October. So I have 3 strategies that I want to share with you today about how I used PrepTober to win NaNoWriMo. Strategy number 1, continue writing something you have already been working on. For this strategy, I actually won my first NaNoWriMo in 2017 because I was writing within the story of something that I'd already started doing. So this is, I guess, called being a nano rebel. I don't care. You do what works to get you 50,000 words in the month of November if you want to participate, or just to get more words in the month of November than you had previously. For Nano of 2017, I was continuing to work in a story that I had started in January. This was a story that I had already gotten maybe almost 50,000 words in already, and I was just wanting to move forward in this story and continue to develop it. So what I did in October is I made sure that I had a plan, that I had already outlined the rest of the story for where I wanted the story to go as I was continuing to write and add words through the month of October, so that in November I wasn't going to be getting to those roadblocks, those writer's block moments where I get to a spot where I'm like, what is the character going to do next? So I made sure that I had an outline, a vague idea of what needed to happen, what characters were going to do, and how they were going to progress towards the end point and what the end point was. So I didn't really prep much in October so much as I was already writing, and then November hit and I just tried to ramp that up to an everyday more and more and more, and I tried to prevent as much writer's block as I possibly could. And then in November I did actually write 50,000 words. I didn't finish the novel. I didn't do that till the next year, but I won NaNoWriMo that year. So just continuing to work on something you're already doing, be a rebel, do something that you've already got started on. Strategy 2 for PrepTober to win NaNoWriMo, I'm going to call the dedicated PrepTober. This is the October that you're actually spending every day or almost every day working a little bit into this story that you want to write for November's Nano. For a dedicated PrepTober, you're gonna need a couple of things. You're gonna need a place where you are writing down all of your ideas. I would literally carry a notebook with me, and I had a dedicated couple of pages at the end of that notebook where I was writing down just ideas for my Nano story. I used the rest of the notebook to write down ideas for other stories that came up, but there was a dedicated section just for my Nano novel. And then you get into the actual dedicated preparations. For me, I have never been good at really developing characters, like character cards with their goals and desires and all of that sort of stuff. But if you're going to be doing Nano and you're going to be with these characters every day for a month, you really want to know them before you get into it. So my recommendation for the things to focus on in October are your characters. Who are your main characters? Who's your point of view character? What do they want? What can they do? What can't they do? If you're writing fantasy like I do, what are their limits or consequences to using their magic or having magic used on them? Things like that. is very useful in preparing to write these characters. I also like to write things like maybe give a few details of their appearance, just something that you can consistently look back to, so you don't have to go back and edit your novel later and realize that your character has green eyes, brown eyes, and blue eyes in 3 different scenes. Done that? Not good. Did not like that. I think I actually did that this Nano, so take the advice that I did not and try to figure out what your characters look like, at least. I mean, eye color and hair color, at least. But yeah, so develop your characters, number 1. Number 2, develop your problem. What problem are your characters facing? Is it a big world-ending kind of problem? Or is it more of a small personal problem that they have to develop and overcome? I like, when also developing characters and problems together, to give like your character's starting point and their end point. They're a little bit of their character arc. So your character starts wanting this and they end getting this and being satisfied with it. So on and so forth, like that. So characters, problems. The third thing you're going to want to focus on is setting. Where does this take place? What do the characters see? If you're a map builder, maybe you're making a map, or you're just trying to figure out like what place in your life is going to inspire the place in the story. And then once you have your characters, your problem, your setting, the last thing that I like to do is some plot points. What are some points that are going to happen to the characters? So for my PrepTober, I try to focus on what is the inciting incident going to be? What is a dark moment going to be? What is it like an all is lost kind of moment? And what is the climax? And because I write a lot of fantasy, my climax is usually some sort of big battle. And so like I'm really bad at writing action scenes. So I try to focus on what is going to happen in that battle. Are there going to be like back and forths? Is there going to be something really big that happens to change the tide of the battle of some kind or something? So just trying to hammer out in as much or as little detail as is comfortable for you, what are the plot points? And then just like some interesting ideas of what maybe could happen to the characters. Like I knew I wanted my character to have a panic attack in a bathroom because that was something that I thought needed to happen. It's a really good scene. I like it, but so I didn't know when that would happen. I didn't know at what point in the story that would happen, but I did write down in my little brainstorm scenes list of panic attack in a bathroom. And also that has an effect on his magic and then things happen. So it sort of evolves as you're going. And I just like to add to that little scene list of like who's the antagonist in the scene, what is support that the character is getting or not getting that they need, and things like that. Just trying to figure out not necessarily how the story is going to go chronologically, but some things that I would like to write. And I think that's going to be like my biggest tip for PrepTober is find out what you would like to write. What's going to excite you? What's going to keep you writing the story for 30 days straight? Because that's what I always struggled with in the past, is I would start NaNoWriMo so strong. I would do a week, 2 weeks, I could do it, and I got bored. Or I lost my passion, or I lost my interest because I didn't know what was going to happen next. So just try to keep a little list of scenes like, well, if I ever don't know what I want to happen next, I want to write this scene. So just keep it in your pocket in October so that come November, when you get into those spots of, I don't know what's going to happen next, you have an idea of something that happens. Maybe it's not going to happen next when you go back and edit your story in the future, but why not now? Just write that thing that you're curious about. And I think that's what PrepTober is great for, is that you can find what makes you curious about your story. I would urge you that even if you work every day in October to prepare for NaNoWriMo, that you're not diving too deep into the best parts. You're not diving too deep into the parts that make you curious, that make you want to write more, that you're leaving some things unexplored so that when you're writing it in November, you're curious. You want to explore that part. You want to see how your character is going to react to this. And you're not just outlining scene for scene, line for line, this is what's going to happen, because then you might as well start writing, which is also a perfectly fair option. Just start writing in October and go through November. See strategy number 1. Just keep going. But do what interests you. And I think, again, that's what PrepTober is great for, is find what interests you, put a little bookmark on it, so then November, you can do it. And you'll be interested, and you'll keep reading and writing. And you'll just keep wanting to work on that story moving forward. Strategy number 3, the last second PrepTober and pants in the nano. For this strategy, you really spend most of the month of October not really doing anything to prepare for NaNoWriMo, except maybe having a couple thoughts like, oh, that would be cool. And then the last 2 or 3 days of the month, you frantically try to gather enough material that you will be able to see through a story for the month of November. I did that in 2019, and I actually ended up succeeding. I did win NaNoWriMo that year, but I spent the last 2 or 3 days kind of focusing in on 2 parts of the story. I came up with my main character. Who is it? Vaguely, what do they look like? And what do they want? And I came up with the problem, the antagonist. And the antagonist was still a vague, wishy-washy, timey-wimey kind of deal. There were barely any details except for the problems that it caused my main character. I didn't know their motivation. I didn't know where they came from. I knew nothing because my main character knew nothing, so it kind of worked. But I did try to define the character and the antagonist, and in the last couple of time blocks or periods of time that I had before actually starting NaNoWriMo, I tried to define the setting. And with those 2.5 sort of ideas just built in the last couple of days of October, I sort of developed enough passion, enough curiosity about the story that I was creating that it saw me through NaNoWriMo. This isn't going to work for everybody. A lot of people are going to be more gotta plan. And a lot of people are going to be more on this side of just sort of an idea and then we'll see what happens. And you'll get 50,000 words. I'll get more into tips about winning NaNoWriMo later, but for PrepTober, there's all kinds of different ways you can do it. You can do the every day you're trying to develop something about what your story is going to be. Or you can do the vague daydreaming and give yourself a break from writing until the run up to November gets a lot closer and you finally decide what you're going to write. Whatever way works for you, it works for you. And evidence of me, I won NaNoWriMo 3 times. I did not use the same prep strategy 3 times, clearly. So what worked for you last year might not work for you this year. And as you develop and you grow as a writer and you do more NaNoWriMos or writing challenges like that, you're going to get your own style. You're going to get a feel for what you really need that year. And that's going to help you develop. And that's going to help you win NaNoWriMo. So those are my 3 ideas for strategies to use this October in the run-up to NaNoWriMo. And if any of this is helpful, if you've used any of these strategies in the past and they've worked or not worked for you, leave a comment down below. I want to know, what strategy are you using to get ready for NaNoWriMo this year? Are you using a strategy? Do you think one of these would work for you? I'm curious and I have questions. So if you guys want to let me know, then I would really be excited to learn more about what you guys are doing this Nano and this October to prepare. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys next time. Bye. Y'all ain't met this one yet. Cat.